We're excited to add to our national platform of attorneys and legal resources across the country. In the greater Milwaukee area in Pewaukee, we have attorney Robert Flessas, who's very involved in all types of law related to real estate, whether it be transactions, probate. He also is an agent at times, has been in the MLS, and so he has a really wide perspective to offer us today. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Bill, and greetings from Wisconsin.
Thank you. You guys are awfully friendly in Wisconsin. We're not so friendly here in LA. So tell me about your practice. How long have you been in practice in the greater Milwaukee area?
I've been in practice about 34 years, and like you had mentioned, I do a lot of real estate. I also am engaged in bankruptcy law, um, estate planning. I also am a principal instructor for continuing education for real estate licensees in Wisconsin, both for in-person sessions and home study via videos that I produced.
Wow. I'm in California, which is obviously a larger market, and in many things not as good. But I think as a realtor, we have very good, powerful tools of documents. In particular, since my practice is focused on probate, we have probate addendums that I don't think any other state association has them for their agents. So how do you advise real estate agents or brokers might come to you and say, hey, I have a property we're selling, but it's part of a probate. What kind of documentation do they need to supplement their contract to protect their client and or protect the prospective buyer?
Well, it's pretty clear in a real estate contract, a sale contract, for the portion of the contract that speaks to the type of deed they're going to receive, right? And that pretty much addresses it, whether it's going to be a personal representative deed or a trustee's deed. So there really isn't another addendum or document that's separate from the offer to purchase.
In Wisconsin, do you have some probates that need a court confirmation process, or all of them done kind of outside of the court?
Well, most people are looking to avoid probate in Wisconsin when there's estate planning. They'll enter into a trust, create a trust, put their real estate in the trust. They also have a will, but I really don't go to probate court. I mean, I've done a few of them, but it's mostly through the estate planning with trusts to avoid. Yeah, because Wisconsin, if your estate is more than 50,000, you don't have a trust, you're going to go to probate. Most people, their estate is worth more than that. So that's the mechanism that most people will use in Wisconsin.
I find that, and of course in California it's very common, people will start the process and not finish it, whether they'll meet with the attorney, get the documents, go home and never follow up, or they'll create an estate and then not transfer the assets, particularly the real estate, into the trust. Is that a common problem in Wisconsin, and how do you address that?
No, not really, because when you do an estate, not only are you going to have a trust, but you're going to have what's called a pour-over will. So anything that you acquire after you've created your trust and your will then, by the very words, pour into your trust.
So does that include real estate? If I buy a house after I do my estate plan, is it automatically poured into the trust as a result?
It could be, but I think that as a practical purpose and just to do it properly, you should transfer your real estate into the trust. And you still can operate, just because it's a trust and let's say you had one, you'd be the trustee, and you can still operate like you would as an individual. Right? So that's the way it works.
In what kind of real estate matters are you most commonly involved with? Just standard transactions or conflicts between buyers and sellers or other parties?
Well, most of my practice is dealing with either buyers or sellers and drafting their contracts or reviewing them. I also I have a lot of landlords that I represent in evictions. I'll help people that are selling their homes by owner, and I'll tell them what they've got to do. And then once they find a buyer, then I'll prepare the contracts and make sure that it gets closed. And like today, I just had a guy that called me. He's got a commercial building. It's a hotel he wants to buy, and he wants to get out of the contract now. So I'm going to be examining that contract and see if there's any way out.
What are the most common mistakes or problems that were avoidable that you see for people who come to you maybe after the fact?
See, that's the problem, is that people come to a lawyer in most cases after they've committed themselves to a contract. and
Yeah.
nobody wants to talk to a lawyer before. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's a money factor, but that's the biggest mistake I see that people make. Um, People will buy, for example, I also dealt with investors that are purchasing properties and they flip them. I've done a fair amount of those, and those types of buyers. I mean, I've represented both on a seller end and a buyer end. That's a typical problem where they're using these contracts you find online, or they're buying them through these packages, and they're
Right.
not really specific to, say, for example, Wisconsin. And then they've got the other problem where they flipped them right away. They didn't even close on the property they acquired, and problems exist on that end, and they can't sell it to the other party. So, these are the types of things that people do. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you want to use a lawyer, get the lawyer involved early instead of once the damage has been done.
Right. A lot cheaper to prevent problems than it is to extricate yourself from legal challenges or legal problems.
Exactly.
What's kind of the success pattern you see of people who are successful in real estate versus those who are not?
Well, first of all, they know what they're doing. They have experience. Secondly, they do have attorneys that work with them. They do have brokers that they use that work with them. They're finding the properties for them. They do have cash reserves to purchase if they're going to purchase them cash, or they have a line of credit if they're going to purchase. But that's generally the formula I think that works. I think that a lot of investors today, especially in the Milwaukee area, they're buying up properties like crazy. And a lot of these properties are experiencing tenants that they inherited that are not paying their rent. And so then they've got to go through the eviction process. And the Milwaukee County circuit courts are very tenant friendly. And, it makes it a lot difficult than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago to evict a tenant now.
Obviously, any real estate agent, particularly those in your market area, would be benefited by having a relationship with you. But you don't want to sit in your office and be cold called all day long by real estate agents. So think of the real estate agents that you have a good business relationship with, that they're both benefiting from your service as well as they're maybe bringing business to your practice as well. How did those relationships start typically, or how would you recommend somebody who wanted to work with you? What would the next steps kind of be to start that relationship?
Well, I would say, you probably want to attend types, meetings and things like that, or groups that get together. When, there's groups in Wisconsin, I know, where they have real estate brokers, attorneys, and they have other types of people that meet, bankers, things like that. They create relationships. Okay. In my case, I'm not bragging, but I got a good name in Wisconsin. And I also, because of the teaching that I do in real estate, I meet a lot of agents. I mean, there's a lot of them that I'm dealing with that are active in real estate, and they get to hear my side of the story, and I get to hear their side of the story. And that's how a lot of relationships have been created, especially over the last 2 years. But it's been over the course of my career.
Very nice. And so I imagine, I try to tell realtors, don't cold call an attorney, ask for business. Maybe call an attorney and find out what events they go to, what are good network events that you might participate in, the bar event maybe, or whatever that might look like, and meet up with you there and buy me a cup of coffee or something. Is that a fair way to get a hold of you and to start a process?
Yeah, because attorneys have continuing education as well. And, non-attorneys can attend these too. They're going to pay more for the course than the attorney is going to, right? I don't think they're going to get any credit for anything, but that's another way to do it, because, during the breaks, you could speak to the attorneys, and that's another good way to do it, I suppose.
That's how I learned about my probate courses here in California. Was I went to bar association continuing ed on probate, and maybe if you're an attorney and a member of the bar, it might cost you $25. I might pay 50 for some stupid lunch, but I was paying for the information and the opportunity to network, and that was where the value was. The attorney is paying his license and his continuing ed fees and all the other expenses of their job. But so while my fee for the class was higher, it was still a good investment on my part. So I encourage all the agents who watch this to attend relevant continuing ed courses to learn, and then they're going to network as well. Estate planning, I think, is a really big one where I really encourage agents. I feel like we should be at the front line of this, because we know our clients that don't have an estate plan versus those that do. We know the buyer's getting ready to need one, and we don't push hard enough to get that done. So for somebody who's interested in an estate plan, I know the challenge is the friction of that first step, right? Writing a check, going to an office can be large. What would you say to somebody who's going to buy a house for their family? They've got 2 or 3 kids. They're buying a $300,000-400,000 house or more. You would say they need an estate plan, and I think we would agree with that. How do you encourage them to take that first step, whether it be a meeting, a consult, or writing a check and getting started?
I'm going to tell you what happens here is that most people that come to me for estate plans, somebody died in their family.
Yes.
So they freak out and they go, "Oh, I better do something." And a lot of people are becoming more keen to that. So that's the way that they've been coming into me. And, I mean, that's good planning. And of course, you could change that over time too. But that is the way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So when people come to you about estate planning, do you have a webinar, or do you do a consult with them, or what's the first step in the process?
They come to my office and I'll talk to them. They'll tell me what they're looking for. And then I'll consider what's going on. And then I'll say, okay, well, we could do X, Y, and Z if you want, or we can do this, and they'll listen to it. Right. And then once we see what are the components of their estate, then if they want to hire me, then I'll draft all the documents. I'll meet with them and then we'll review them in detail, and then we'll sign with all the
So,
witnesses.
is the best way to get a hold of you through the website?
Yeah, you can go through my website, robertflessas.com. There it is.
robertflessas.com. Then he hired a very handsome Hollywood actor there to be the face of the website. Some eye candy there for the ladies. And there's a phone number right there if you want to follow up and set an appointment. And again, this is a great place to start, particularly if you're looking to do estate planning, or if you're a real estate agent, you're selling a house, you have a seller who doesn't have a plan in place. It's a great way to make an introduction and get them started in the process to protect their assets. The first thing we do as real estate agents is seek to help our customers. And one way would be protect their assets with proper estate planning. Robert, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for your help, and look forward to continuing our conversation.
All right. Thank you, Bill, for having me. I appreciate it.